On September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur was shot 4 times on the Las Vegas Strip. He died 6 days later. 3 months before that shooting, he recorded a song under the name Machiavelli, where he rapped about being shot and dying young. The album was called The 7-Day Theory. He lived for 7 days after the shooting before passing away. This wasn't a coincidence. At least that's what his fans believed, and Tupac wasn't the only one. Over the past 3 decades, some of hip-hop's biggest names have released songs, posted videos, and gone on live streams where they seem to describe their own deaths before they happened. The Notorious B.I.G, Big L, Nipsey Hussle, XXXTENTACION, Pop Smoke. Each one left behind words that in hindsight read like premonitions. This is the story of 8 rappers who appeared to predict their own deaths, and what it means that this keeps happening in hip-hop. If you like deep hip-hop stories told with the full context, please like the video and hit subscribe. I post videos like this every week. Number 1, Tupac Shakur. Tupac recorded more music about his own death than any rapper in history. On the track, Death Around the Corner from 1995, he described seeing death in his peripheral vision. On If I Die Tonight, he imagined the media coverage of his funeral. On I Ain't Mad at Cha, he rapped about being gunned down, walking into heaven, and watching his friend grieve him. The music video for I Ain't Mad at Cha was released days after Tupac was shot in Las Vegas. In it, Tupac gets shot, leaving a movie theater. He then appears in heaven with Miles Davis, Billie Holiday, and other late black entertainers. Fans watching the video on BET that September thought they were seeing a tribute. The label had actually filmed it weeks earlier. Then there's the Machiavelli album. Tupac named himself after Niccolo Machiavelli, an Italian philosopher some believed faked his own death. The cover showed Tupac crucified on a cross. He released it under this name just 2 months before his shooting. The album was titled The 7-Day Theory. Tupac was shot on Saturday and declared dead the following Friday. 7 days. Conspiracy theories about Tupac faking his death started the moment he passed. But the more interesting question is why he kept writing about dying young in the first place. By 1996, Tupac had already been shot 5 times in a New York recording studio. He'd been stabbed. He'd been arrested. He knew the trajectory. His music wasn't a prediction. It was a calculation. Number 2, the Notorious B.I.G. 6 months after Tupac was killed, Christopher Wallace was shot to death in Los Angeles. Biggie's second album was titled Life After Death. It was released 16 days after his murder. Think about that for a second. The album cover shows Biggie standing next to a hearse. The lead single was called Hypnotize. The follow-up single, Mo Money, Mo Problems. And the final single released from that album was titled You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You. Biggie's debut album, released 3 years earlier, was called Ready to Die. The cover showed a baby photographed to look like a corpse. The first track on that album is literally an audio recording of Biggie being born. The final track is him committing suicide. From the beginning of his career to the end, his entire discography was a meditation on mortality. On the song Suicidal Thoughts, Biggie describes, in vivid detail, shooting himself in the head over the phone. He released this at 22 years old. He was murdered at 24. The people closest to Biggie said he'd been afraid in the months before his death. He'd been telling friends that he didn't think he'd live to see the Life After Death release. The album title wasn't a metaphor to him. It was a prophecy he'd already accepted. Number 3, Big L. If you don't know Big L, he was one of the most technically gifted rappers of the 90s. Lamont Coleman grew up in Harlem, signed to Columbia Records at 19, and was considered by Nas and Jay-Z to be one of the best to ever touch a microphone. On his song Street Struck, released in 1995, Big L rapped about being killed young in the streets of Harlem. 4 years later, on February 15th, 1999, he was murdered in a drive-by shooting on West 139th Street in Harlem. He was 24 years old. What makes Big L's case haunting isn't just one lyric. It's the entire arc of his album, Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous. Every song warned about exactly what happened to him. The shooter was never convicted, but the streets always believed it was tied to a dispute involving his brother. Big L knew the environment he was in. His lyrics weren't prophecy, they were documentation, and somehow it gets darker. Number 4. Nipsey Hussle. On March 31st, 2019, Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed outside his own clothing store in South Los Angeles. The killer was a local man who'd exchanged words with him moments earlier. Nipsey was 33 years old. Weeks before his death, Nipsey released Racks in the Middle, a song where he rapped about surviving despite the odds. But in interviews going back years, Nipsey had repeatedly said he expected to die young. He'd lost friends to gun violence throughout his life. He'd been shot himself as a teenager. The chilling part wasn't a single lyric, it was what he said in a documentary filmed months before his death. He described the exact scenario of how a black man from his neighborhood dies. He described it with the calm of someone reading a weather forecast. He then walked out onto the sidewalk where, weeks later, he would be killed on camera. His album was called Victory Lap. It won a Grammy the year after his death. Number 5. XXXTENTACION. This case disturbs people for a specific reason. Jasse Onfroy, one known as XXXTENTACION, wasn't just metaphorically predicting his death in songs. On an Instagram live broadcast 6 months before he was murdered, he directly told his fans what he thought was going to happen. He said, quote, "If I'm going to die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy." He continued describing the scenario in detail. He said he imagined himself being killed during a robbery. On June 18, 2018, Jasse was leaving a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach, Florida, when 2 men approached his BMW. They demanded his money. They shot him multiple times and took his Louis Vuitton bag, which contained $50,000 in cash. He died on the scene. He was 20 years old. The Instagram Live wasn't the only warning. His song, Jocelyn Flores, dedicated to a friend who died by suicide, ends with a lyric about his own violent end. His song, Sad, contains a music video where XXXTENTACION attends his own funeral and sees himself in a casket. That video was released 1 week before he died. Number 6, Mac Miller. Malcolm McCormick died of an accidental drug overdose on September 7, 2018, the 22nd anniversary of Tupac's Las Vegas shooting. Mac Miller's case is different from the others. He wasn't murdered, but the patterns in his final project are the ones fans point to. The music video for his song Self-Care, released 1 month before his death, opens with him waking up inside a coffin. The word memento mori is carved into the lid, which is Latin for remember that you will die. He spends the video breaking out of the casket. His final album, Swimming, was promoted with the follow-up Circles, meant to represent the cycle of life and death. Circles was released posthumously. In interviews during his final year, Mac talked openly about his struggles with substance abuse. He talked about the toll his public breakup with Ariana Grande had taken on him. He wasn't predicting a murder, he was describing a slower kind of ending, one his closest friends later said they all saw coming. Number 7, Pop Smoke. Bashar Jackson was 19 years old when he was murdered in a Hollywood Hills home invasion on February 19, 2020. Pop Smoke had posted photos on Instagram the day before, photos that accidentally revealed the exact address of the house he was staying in. The gift bags at the Airbnb had the street name printed on them. He showed the gift bags on camera. 4 young men in hoodies entered through the balcony at 4 in the morning. They shot Pop Smoke multiple times. He died before reaching the hospital. Now, Pop Smoke didn't spend his career rapping about death the way Tupac did, but his song Mannequin contained lyrics about being caught slipping. His song Dior referenced never sleeping on the opposition. In hindsight, his close friends said he'd been nervous about that trip to Los Angeles. He told people he wasn't sure if he should go. The address leak wasn't a lyric, it was an Instagram post. But the result was the same. His own words, his own images, ended up being the information his killers used. Number 8, King Von. Davon Bennett was shot to death outside a nightclub in Atlanta on November 6, 2020. He'd been arguing with another rapper, Quando Rondo, and the conflict escalated into a shootout. King Von was 26 years old. King Von's entire catalog was built around narrative true crime storytelling. He rapped about shootings, stabbings, and street conflicts in specific detail. On his song, Took Her to the O, he described violence at a nightclub. On Crazy Story, he laid out a killing step by step. His friends and label executives had warned him for years that his music made him a target. The bodyguard he had that night was a rapper named Timothy Leaks, who fired back during the fight. 2 people died at the scene, 3 more were injured. What makes King Von's death fit this pattern isn't a single song. It's that he documented his entire life in his lyrics, including the part of his life that eventually killed him. If you went back and listened to his catalog after the fact, it reads like a suicide note he didn't know he was writing. So, what connects all of these cases? The easy answer is to call it a curse. The internet has been doing that for decades. The harder answer is more uncomfortable. Hip-hop was born from neighborhoods where dying young wasn't a possibility. It was a statistic. Rappers from South Central, from Bed-Stuy, from Harlem, from Broward County, from Brownsville, from Chicago, grew up watching people die around them. When they wrote about their own deaths, they weren't prophesizing. They were observing the math. Biggie knew he was at war with Tupac's camp. Big L knew the Harlem streets he came from. Nipsey Hussle knew the exact sidewalk he was standing on. XXXTENTACION knew he'd made enough enemies that a robbery was a realistic outcome. Pop Smoke knew certain trips carried risk. King Von knew his music had made him a mark. They weren't psychic, they were accurate. But there's a second layer to this that's harder to talk about. Something about predicting your own death in public, in a verse, in a video, in a live stream, makes the thing more likely to happen. Marketing it, filming it, building an aesthetic around it. Every rapper on this list built a brand partially around the idea that they might not make it, and the audience that rewarded that brand also helped reinforce it. Mac Miller didn't die in a shooting, but he'd been living in public with his addictions for years, and the fans who loved his honesty were also watching him slowly disappear. The art wasn't separate from the ending. The art was part of the ending. None of this takes away from what these artists made. Tupac, Biggie, Big L, Nipsey, XXXTENTACION, Mac Miller, Pop Smoke, and King Von left behind catalogs that will outlive most of us. But the pattern matters because the pattern keeps repeating. Another young rapper is writing a verse right now about not making it to 30. Another one is going live on Instagram, describing how they think they'll go out. Another one is filming a music video where they appear in a coffin. Some of them will be wrong, some of them will be right. And when the right ones happen, fans will go back through the catalog, find the lyrics, post the clips, and call it a prediction. But it was never really a prediction. It was a reflection of conditions that most listeners never have to live in. That's the part this video is actually about. If you want to see more breakdowns like this, including a deep dive into the unsolved murders of Tupac and Biggie, check out the videos that are on screen right now. Subscribe, and we'll keep bringing these stories back to where they started.